successful. And sorry. And we've had a great amount of success when we implement, or when they implement the closures on the panhandle, and when we're there to support them. And so thank you, Danielle, for the great partnership that we've had. And I really appreciate all of your efforts and going to your big bosses to make sure that we could implement those panhandle closures. Another update I have is recently when we had a side, well, it wasn't a sideshow, it was more one of the lowrider shows. It was on Broadway, primarily between 14th Street and 29th Street. And they were also kind of cruising in the area after a funeral. One of our sergeants contacted one member of the group who identified himself as one of the leaders. And he provided that information to me, and I reached out to the leader and just asked him if he would be willing to meet with us and Danielle and her crew, just to talk about some potential options and to minimize the impact on all of you as residents, all of the local businesses, and kind of see what their goals are and what their intentions are, and then share with them some of the concerns that we have, that all of you have, and everything that we deal with when they try to have these car shows. So first, Danielle and I are going to meet up some other people from Danielle's crew, some other people from my crew. We're going to meet up, and we're just really going to get on the same page as far as what we would like to see, what we can do, what we can offer them. And then after we meet up as a group, then ideally we're going to meet up with the leader of this group and come up with some viable options to provide them the opportunity to do their thing, if it's in a peaceful way, if it's in a way that's not breaking the law and not harming anyone, and ideally minimizing the impact on all of you, all of our other local residents, and then all the businesses in the area as well. Specific to the park, I don't really have any other updates. As far as all the COVID restrictions we are dealing with right now, with us being hands off with the homeless population. I know June 15th is the big date, and the big question mark is anything changing for us on what we can do and what we can't do related to, the homeless. I don't have an update right now. We haven't been given any new direction. So for us right now, related to what we can and can't do related to the homeless population, it'll be status quo until we hear anything different. And that's about all I have. Unless anybody has any specific questions, I'm happy to field any.
Greg, you're on mute if you're.
I know. Get myself off mute.
Okay.
Anyway, so for me, I'm a car buff, so I have to share that with everybody. I kind of like the car shows, maybe in the Panhandle, if they can organize it and block it off so they're not driving, you know how they get later in the day, they get squirrely and they start spinning their cars around and doing stuff. I'm always afraid somebody's going to get hurt, but it is really fun to see them with their cars. Maybe they can do an event and schedule it, and by doing it in the park and scheduling it, they will pay fees for the park. Because if you schedule a bounce house or something, you're supposed to pay a fee. So I'm up for letting them use it as long as it's scheduled. I don't know. That's my idea. Whatever. Anybody else have any comments on that? I don't know.
No, I think, Craig, from my perspective, I appreciate that, and I think some of the cars that show up and the folks that participate are genuinely interested in showing what they've done. I think, unfortunately, though, what I've seen and experienced is that it's really not a car show. It is a grouping of folks who monopolize an area of the park to the exclusion of others, and that there are some that are tangentially related to that group or that try to partake in that end up in the car shows and cause the issues that you raised earlier in terms of potential safety issues. But I do agree that if there were a way to think through where a true car show could be properly permitted, and I know we've had some conversations about that, maybe close to the Village Green or even around Fairy Tale Town, where it's areas that you could actually park your cars to display them, then I think of course there's an interest in that. So I agree that to the extent that they can be properly permitted and genuinely geared towards a car show and a display, I think that would absolutely be an appealing opportunity.
Craig, I have a 2 cents, and I appreciate the fact that, we're trying to give peace a chance. But I remember many of the times riding my bike and seeing cars and trailers and who's ever pulling the trailer. And it ends up being that it's not, the little Village Green ends up being overran, period. Even I think to the extent if it was extended to, even if it was extended to the Village Green, I think it would be overran if it was an official car show, because these guys travel and, they got, I don't want to say how many thousands of dollars in their cars, but many of them don't drive them. They put them on the trailer and then they drag them to the show and then they take them off and, kick the tires and, drink beer or whatever. So I would almost ask, is there another location, another venue, or is Land Park the only park in town that can have such an event as what was just mentioned? That's my 2 cents. I really enjoy the guy with the motorcycle, at least one of them, that has the biggest speakers in town, that gets to tell me and everybody else within 5 miles that he's coming through. I really do appreciate that, though. Yeah. I'm sorry, but it's the meds I'm taking that's making me a little bit cynical.
That's fine. The thing was with me, this is a regional park. Everybody should have access to it to some degree. I was just trying to say, if we had a spot that they could show their cars in a proper way so that everybody could just enjoy it, maybe that's something. I don't know. I'm trying to give everybody a chance to participate in the park, but not cut people out. Yes, I understand what you're saying with art. Yes, they bring the cars in from all over. They get together. Maybe we go to another place. It could be somewhere like Cal Expo has always been a car show for years. Maybe they have something else out there. I don't know. It's just that I know the park is nice. It's got the trees, it's got the atmosphere. People feel friendly there. I just wish we could have something, maybe not as big, but something that they can share their cars with. That's all.
Well, if we can block off the park for periods of time for races and things like that, it seems to me that there might, I don't know enough about the problems, and I'm sure that Lieutenant Chandler and Danielle have a clearer sense of that, but I don't, it just seems like there could be a possibility of creating the time and the space for it to happen. But I can imagine some of the other concerns that have been brought up are real too. So I don't know. It seems like that's gonna be
I just want to bring that up. So, Vance has an idea maybe, or maybe we can talk with the parks and talk about maybe, and they can have a spot. I don't know.
Well, Rick here. The real problem isn't the people at Nice. Well, it's problem. There are problem people involved, like the guy that Art talks about that I've heard for over a year. You know, why aren't people like that cited that make just horrendous amounts of noise when they go through the park? If they would, one thing, if you did have a permitted function like Craig suggested, not only that would there be a fee, but then you've got somebody responsible. You've got somebody whose name is on there in charge. And usually when somebody, you know, when there's a group where their name's on it, then they police their own thing and keep the jerks out. But yeah, I've seen them come out of there just ripping around Westland Park Drive area by John's house, all that kind of thing, just ripping out, you know, laying scratch all over the place because they don't see another car on the street. So if the jerks can be somehow controlled, why, you know, you could have nice events. Or should we say ticketed?
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah, these are all
the jerks are ticketed.
these are all really valid concerns, and you know, many Sundays and many other weekends, I receive a lot of these concerns from some of you and many others. And my primary concerns, just like yours, are, you know, when these events happen and they're blocking driveways of people who want to leave their home or come back to their home, or they're parking in front of fire hydrants, or they're blocking a street because they're parking in the middle of the street and there's no access for emergency vehicles.
Yep.
And then, you know, they're driving recklessly, and or disturbances, you know, at the park when drinking gets involved and that kind of stuff. I mean, some of the stuff are real safety concerns, and then also, you know, it's a park that all of you want to enjoy with your friends and family, and want to go there to, you know, enjoy the day. You know, that's those are really concerning for us. So that's our goal of meeting with the leader. Of course, the leader can't control everybody in the group, but at least if we could get some dialogue and some cooperation from him and say, hey, what's your goal? This is what we can do. These are all of our concerns. These are the concerns from the residents. And then we could come up at least some better options than right now, because I understand all your concerns. They're really valid. Danielle mentioned in the message board that she has some information on permits. So hopefully she'll be able to elaborate a little bit more on that. And Craig, to support what you're saying too, I think that there's some real value to, you know, the group that wants to go there and have a good time and do positive stuff and show their cars and all that. And that's what we want to support. But all of the safety concerns, the violations and all that, you know, none of that's okay. And those are things that you guys have to deal with. It's right in your front yard and your backyard. And those are our concerns as well.
Yep.
Well, thank you, Vance, and thank your team for everything you do. And I think that's a good segue into Danielle. I know you've been burning the both ends of the candle, but would love to get your updates. And then also just commend you and your team on the pedestrian-friendly panhandle that we've kind of witnessed over the last couple months. It's really, I've gotten a lot of positive feedback, and hopefully you have as well. But I guess without further ado, why don't you kind of give us an update?
Thank you, Scott. For everyone who doesn't know me, my name is Danielle Luther. I'm one of 2 park ranger supervisors with the city of Sacramento. And I have been, I guess, spearheading the land park closures throughout the last year, roughly about a year. This has been a trial project with these closures that we started in 2020 because we did see a significant uptick in gatherings and unpermitted. I'm hesitant to say car shows because the important thing to note here with these folks is that this is not typically a well-organized event in the sense of, hey, everyone, we're having a car show, come out, you know, bring your, you know, vintage car, you know, this is a family-friendly event, that type of thing. There is a very large lowrider community. They do, you know, promotions through Facebook, Instagram, things like that. But to say it's organized, I would use that in the most loose terms possible. So this goes back years and years for anyone who's lived in the area for, any length of time. You probably know that Land Park, specifically that area of Land Park, holds a historical significance to the lowrider community. I'm not sure what that is beyond the proximity to Broadway, which was the cruise route for a number of years. But it's a sentimental spot for them to gather and to just kind of be together. And it's really just all inclusive. And so if you were to try and, put a number to, hey, next Sunday, who's going to come out and be a part of this? I don't think that there would be any way to do that, because it's just kind of a mass gathering of people. And I will say that in my experience, I've talked to a lot of groups who are out there to be a part of a family-friendly event, to show off their cars, to do all the things that we wanted, people to do in our park system. But then you also have this other element of people who are there for the loud music, the reckless driving, the drinking, the smoking, the drugs, all of those things that we discourage in our park system. So it's just an important thing to note that there's really no, one person who's in charge of all of this activity. It's a widespread community that's not just restricted to Sacramento. We have Stockton folks, we have Bay Area folks, we have people coming from miles outside of the city to participate in these functions. So again, this has been a trial for us, these closures, just to try and mitigate a lot of the complaints that the community had, rightfully so, with the loud music, the reckless driving. We weren't so much focused on excuse me, the COVID aspect of people gathering. It was more so just general safety precautions for, for example, everyone is well aware of what took place on New Year's Day. There were, thousands of people in that very small area, to the point where if we needed to get fire or other emergency personnel in there, there was no way to safely do that in a, efficient manner. And so those are the types of things that, having historical knowledge of what holidays throughout the year will generate those large crowds, we said, let's get out ahead of this. Let's try and see if we can do this. It worked out in our favor, because with COVID, we were not issuing picnic permits. So we didn't have to be concerned with that aspect of how are we going to allow people to access, these permitted areas, which we did begin permitting earlier this year. And we have continued with our holiday closures, and we have not had any issues with that. It's just, really on our part, just education in terms of, you are still allowed access to your reservable picnic areas. You just can't drive your vehicle to them. So, and then just touching on the question or suggestion about wanting to have, something permitted, or something where, these folks are paying money to, have these gatherings, and covering things like, excessive trash, so on and so forth. As a part of my duties, I sit on the City of Sacramento Special Event Review. So any large event that takes place within the city has to go through a very large panel review that includes myself, the police department, parking enforcement, traffic, really just every stakeholder within the city that could be potentially affected by a large gathering. And there are a number of considerations that we have when we vet these applications for these special events. Obviously, the biggest thing in this case would be numbers. So if you're projecting, you want to have an organized car event in the panhandle, your numbers would be significantly reduced because we have to take into consideration the amount of space that you have available. So for example, when Vance and I meet with one of the leaders of one of the local clubs, and we talk about, what they're looking for and projected attendance. And, there's a whole host of things that go into events. Will there be food truck vendors? If there's a certain amount of people, we need to have porta potties brought in. If there's alcohol, it has to be either a completely fenced event or it has to be restricted to a beer garden. Depending on, those considerations, there's a requirement for police officers to be hired as a part of that, or security guards. So a whole just list of things that we go through depending on what type of an event they're trying to have. And when we look at that, we have to think, where is the best place for an event of that size? Now, Village Green, depending on attendance, that might be a viable option. You all know we shut that area down for runs consistently. That flows like, clockwork. That's a very easy closure. We have, all the specifics dialed down for that. So if they wanted to have a car show, we would have people come in and they would pay for insurance and vehicle passes, just a whole host of things to cover any liability that the city would have to potentially endure in terms of, damage or anything like that. But, if they're looking to have, something like New Year's Day, for example, with thousands of people, we need to look at a space that's going to be accommodating for them so that they have a successful event and that, the community is not negatively affected by that particular event. So we would find someplace, an alternate location that can appropriately house that many people. And, we wouldn't have to worry about traffic jams and noise complaints and things like that. So hopefully that kind of gives a broader picture of permitting events and, kind of what lens we're looking through when we think about these things.
Excellent. Thank you, Danielle. Does anyone have any questions?
Yeah, I have some questions. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I was wondering when she was talking about that, and every time we have something that goes on, we talk about the zoo and everything like that, and Arco Arena comes up, and you've got all that space setting out there. Isn't it possible that you could do these big car shows and stuff out there and actually probably control it a lot better than you could in Land Park? It's just a thought.
Yeah, no, and that would be something that, again, it's a person will submit an application to our special events office. We get together and we, typically had in-person meetings every Tuesday. Obviously that's changed. Now we're doing the whole Zoom thing. But we look at, and they generally have an idea of where they want to do something. And if it's not a viable location, then we as a committee look at alternate locations where, within the city, we can advise them to go. We have large parks that are kind of in an industrial area that would be much more accommodating for that type of activity. Miller Park would be a great place for them to go. That's also, holds historical significance to them. It's just a matter of, getting these people committed to a date and then making all of the, all of the decisions that we need to make it a successful event and make it flow for the public. So, for example, let's just say, a car club wants to have 1,000 people, 2,000 people, and they choose Miller Park. We as a parks department will shut that entire park down to the public for that day. That takes out, all of the, having to filter people in and out that aren't a part of the event. We make specifications for people who have slips, on that particular side of the park so that they have access. So it's really just about choosing an appropriate spot and then getting all of the logistics in place.
Okay.
Cool. So I have a question about permitting in the park. I know because of COVID, you probably did not have as much access for permitting people to have bounce houses, music, or any kind of activities in the park. So what do you see in the future that you can control more of that or maintain it better than just people showing up and having their parties?
So that's a good question to bring up, actually, and that's something that we are actively working through as a department. Obviously, last year, we completely, we had a moratorium on any type of permits, picnic permits. When you apply to have a picnic permit, you choose, what GA area that you want to have it at. And then you get to add on a la carte, if you want amplified sound, if you want a bounce house, if you want, there's a kind of a multitude of things that you can choose from. And then we assign a fee based on those choices. So throughout the last year, we have had a hard and fast rule that we haven't been issuing any permits. But as things have started to reopen, we have tried to adapt as a department so that we are still allowing people to come out and to utilize the parks, which is great in theory, but it has caused a large amount of confusion because for the last few months, it has been a first come, first serve situation where we were not charging people for picnic permits, but they were still allowed to go out and gather under specific restrictions. Whether or not they were abiding by that is here nor there. Citywide, we were having issues with that. But think of it as like, essentially, it's kind of been a free for all. And now that we are back to, transitioning back to reserved picnic spaces, and people having to pay for these permits, it's an educational shift. And so we're running into that problem where we have people who, they have the bounce houses, they have the amplified sound, they have fundraising, they have, all these different things, and they don't have the appropriate permit for it. On any given weekend throughout the city, I couldn't even put a number to how many, instances that this is occurring. And it's going to be a transitional period while we, get back into the flow of like, things are going back to normal now. You have to apply for and pay for these permits. So really, it's just kind of a time heals all wounds type of a situation where we just have to be patient.
So do you have any avenue of educating people to know that, like you would have a picnic table, you would say you need to rent this? Or is there any kind of education for people to know that they have to do that? I know where to do that on T Street. I've done all this, but I'm just trying to figure out how other people get educated.
So also a very good point. And I'm a huge communication person. And so, whenever we have a change or an update, I'm very much on, let's get this out on Nextdoor, let's get this out on, Facebook, Instagram, all of these social media avenues that we have to, ensure that people know, kind of what's going on at that particular time. Unfortunately, the wheels of city government don't necessarily operate that quickly and that smoothly. So that's a completely other division within the Parks Department that we make suggestions to, but ultimately they have their own, kind of set of rules that they follow, and they do updates via voicemail. They might have a website updated, but I'm sure that there's probably room for improvement as far as far-reaching communication. We still issue paper picnic permits. So my staff has to go out on weekends, my assistant rangers. They go out on the weekends and they have to physically put a reservation paper on picnic areas. So we're so far advanced in certain technologies and so antiquated in others. So I feel like the permit office and that kind of division is really just, they're kind of stuck in that quicksand of trying to modernize, but it's a process. So that's, again, that's something we suggest. If you're going to make these changes, make sure that it's, widespread information, but not necessarily something that, comes to fruition.
Danielle, we can, if we're notified once things are, what's going to happen or what you would like to get out of to the public, our communications person has been wonderful about getting information out through Facebook, through Twitter, on our website. And we're also now starting to work with other neighborhood associations. So that's certainly, if we get accurate information that we can post, we'll share it to the best of our abilities.
I will bring that up to our director and assistant director. I'm happy to be the conduit for that information. So, if the permit office is providing all of their up-to-date information, which we have a good, rapport with them, we work hand in hand with them. I'm more than happy to relay that information to, to you guys, and you disseminate it. I mean, you guys are the masters of disseminating information. So, that would be very helpful to us.
And then Rick, I see either you're giving Danielle and her team a high five or you raise your hand.
Yeah, I raised my hand. And I won't make any other jokes, but anyway, there's a problem that Chris Rogers and I discussed this afternoon. There's a woman in the panhandle that has essentially moved into the bathroom. According to Chris, she tells people that she pays money to someone that takes it to the city, and that she actually rents that bathroom to live in. Now, there may be somebody who's literally ripping this deteriorated mind off, and she's giving him money, and of course they just pocket it because clearly the city's not renting out the bathroom. But the park staff leaves at generally 2:30. They could unlock it in the morning because they're there at 6 and out there, but the park rangers should lock that bathroom at sundown to keep people from moving in, because the public can't use it when it's somebody's dump.
Yeah, Rick, thank you for that. I know exactly who you're talking about. And so this will go back to Vance's comment about people experiencing homelessness and, kind of the rules and regulations that we have to abide by, not necessarily from the city government, but from the Sacramento County Public Health. And they've made it very clear that in very finite detail, when it comes to the unhoused population, it's, right now, it's very difficult to move these folks along. In her case, she might benefit from a visit from the police department's mental health unit. So I'm happy to make that suggestion to them. But touching on walking the restrooms, I will be very candid and honest with you that is a slippery slope that we cannot begin, because we have over 230 parks within the city. And if we start locking restrooms for one, it's just a matter of time before all those dominoes fall and we start getting requests for all these other restrooms, and we do not have the staff for that. That's not what park safety is designed for. Therefore,
but I know that some of them have doors that automatically lock and unlock at certain hours. So I know a number of restrooms are designed that way, but this person is a particular person, and it's just like they moved into any building in the park. You can't allow them, the homeless, to just appropriate a building to themselves. That is very different than just, sleeping on a bench or something.
No, I agree. I definitely agree. And that would be something that, we're getting into kind of legal specifications here as far as, the whole homeless thing is very political, very charged. And there's a lot of, rules and regulations behind it that essentially, we kind of vet everything through the city attorney's office. Like, is this, can we do anything with this? Is this okay? Does this violate, the existing case law? things like that. But as I said, in this case with this particular individual, I've had interactions with her. She has called me the Antichrist and cursed me to hell. She is a very special individual that could benefit from some specialized services. So I will reach out to them tomorrow and make that suggestion. Unless Vance, I don't know if you might.
But when you interact with her the next time, ask her if she is actually paying somebody that claims they're giving the money to the city to rent the room. I mean, somebody could be stealing from her that way.
No, you're absolutely right, but she has a particular hatred for me, so I don't think we're going to get very far. She's tried to throw holy water at me, so I'm not quite sure what that's about, but it's definitely something worth looking
I would
into.
also be happy to interchange with the city attorney's office on this matter because I'm pretty good at legal fine points, and I've frankly beaten the city attorney's office twice in court.
Oh, good. I'm going to call you then when I have any questions with their decisions. So you're going to be my new best friend, okay?
Don't be shy. You can get a hold of it.
But Danielle, to your earlier point, I know you called out for Vance, and I think Vance is still on. The point you make about your personal interaction with this individual, and I'm familiar with her as well because she was actually camping out at the bathrooms next to the lake by Fairy Tale Town. My concern with regard to this particular individual is actually a safety concern. One that it sounds like you experienced yourself. I think she could benefit from a mental health visit. But I'm concerned for kids and other users of the park because of the unpredictability of this individual. And she has been in this area for a long while in regard to the panhandle around the bathrooms. But she's also been walking around the neighborhood. And so I would just note for you and Vance, as it relates to any interaction or conversations you have with the city attorneys or others, that this individual is potentially, unsafe for others that are in the park. And so I would note that as a particular concern, for my son who's 13 and others who are using the park. I feel terrible for the circumstance, but I think we also have to recognize the public safety impact. So, and the last thing, before I go on mute, I just wanted to make sure to recognize all the efforts that Danielle and Vance and others have made with regard to the panhandle closures. It's made a significant difference in the last year or so that I've been here, and I personally appreciate it, being here on Westland Park Drive. But I think those families and others who get to use the park appreciate it as well. So I'd be remiss if I just didn't mention that to the group.
Could I
Hey,
add?
John, I want to follow up with what you just said because you've been very helpful in providing us insight on what's happening when we're not around. And without all of your suggestions and insight on, what's happening during those days and evenings, when we're in the office and we're not aware of it, you've been really huge. So hopefully we've shown that we've listened to all of your concerns and we know how valid they are. So you've been a huge part of it too. So thank you.
Well, can I add one final thing? I've liked what you've been saying and I'm listening. And maybe I missed this when we first were talking, Vance, a little bit. Is there really anything that the city can do about that guy on the motorbike that and drives around with that sound music and all that? I mean, my friend John Funny's smiling over here, and we've had meetings and stuff in the park, and this guy goes by and you can't hear. And people have a right to do certain things, but there's a community as a whole you got to consider. And I don't see how that he has to have the volume up to wake up the neighborhood and stuff like that when he's doing that. There seems to be, I don't know if there's anything legally you can do about it that can calm him down. And I'm sure people that are coming and parking and doing the car thing drives him crazy because you can't hear when he's driving around doing that.
Yeah, so it's not illegal to have an alarm clock, but it is illegal. There are two sections. There's a California Vehicle Code section, and then there's actually a city section that covers loud music from a vehicle. And I don't have it in front of me, but one of them is 25 feet and the other one is 50 feet. So you do have violations, and depending on the distance, then that person would be in violation of that vehicle code. So with that in mind, when this happens, call our non-emergency number and give a description of the motorcycle, what's happening, description of the driver, because if nobody calls, we don't know about it. And then
true.
our officers don't have the opportunity to respond. And we may be busy on calls, we may not be. But now if all of you call as neighbors living in that area and the other neighbors call, now we're getting a bunch of calls, and now it ups that priority of that concern, because it's not just one person who's called, it's the whole neighborhood calling, and that person is being a nuisance. And now we need to stop that from happening.
Okay. So John, funny thought.
Well, no, well, thank you for that. And we have a special guest. We have Robert Sherry from the Sacramento Tree Foundation. And just wanted to introduce, oh, go ahead. Sorry, Bobby.
Can I just ask Danielle one quick thing? Do we have any schedule at all when the panhandle is scheduled to be closed, other than we had those lovely couple weekends in May? Is there any schedule on when the closures will be happening?
Let me go back and look through my calendar. We have a couple of other, we've kind of passed through all the big ticket holidays, Cinco de Mayo, Mother's Day, Easter. I don't know, I'm not going to comment yet if we're going to do these closures on 4th of July weekend, only because that is an all hands on deck weekend for us, and we need all of those bodies throughout the city. So I don't necessarily know that we can put someone on a fixed post that weekend. Don't quote me on that. I just kind of have to figure out the patrol plan. We are looking at doing a closure on Sunday, June 20th, which is Father's Day, because we do have information that there is a Bay Area group that wants to come up and do a pretty publicized barbecue, cruise situation. So we want to, mitigate that and get out ahead of that ahead of time, and just kind of get that place, shut down so that they don't have the opportunity to, when you get people coming from the Bay Area, it's like, just the crowds multiply by, so many. So Father's Day, that's Sunday, possibly 4th of July. Like I said, I'm not going to commit to that just yet. I believe we will do Labor Day weekend. And then this is like obviously very far in the future, but we will be shutting down New Year's Day of 2022.
Okay.
Okay.
That's
Riot time.
There's an upcoming National Night Out in August. That might be a nice date to consider as well. And I don't have the date in front of me, but it's something we've talked about, getting together with other neighbors and creating some kind of community event for that. And so that might be something you'd be willing to consider. So.
Yeah, no, absolutely. If you have dates, that you would like us to look at, so I make a decision at the patrol level, but I have to get ultimate approval from the parks director. So he's very open and amenable to understanding the issues, and wanting to put these measures in place to keep everyone safe and just make it an enjoyable environment for everyone. So if you have specific dates outside of major holiday weekends and things like that, you can always send them to me. I can't guarantee you I'm going to get them approved, but I'm always happy to float them up the chain and just get a temperature of what they think about it in our admin.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. All right, guys, I'm going to jump off. I got a 3 a.m. wake up call, but thank you so much for having me. You guys have my email if you have questions. I am very open to, if you guys have anything you want to chat about or anything like that, shoot me an email and I will get back to you as soon as I can.
Well, thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, guys, for your support. Have a good night.
You too.
Thank you.
Okay. So Robert, if you want to go ahead, again, from Robert Sherry from the Sacramento Tree Foundation is able to join us and wanted to just, introduce into the community and learn more about what great things are doing.
Well, great. Thanks, Scott, for letting me give me the opportunity to speak to you tonight. We had intended that this was going to be kind of a joint effort between me and Jeannie Shaw. Unfortunately, Jeannie, while hiking in Vermont, had an accident. She's okay, but it delayed her return. So she's, I understand, in flight right now as we're talking. So I'm going to be going solo tonight. I don't know if you can see it, but I've got on my Sacramento t-shirt. You all recognize that water tower? I know now it says Sacramento Farm to Fork Capital, but in our mind, it's still, Sacramento is still the city of trees. I just wanted to let you know that. A little bit about myself. By the way, before I get too far into this, Scott, how are we doing on time?
We have plenty of time,
Okay.
So take what you need.
Okay, I'll try not to be overly wordy here. A little bit about myself. I've been on the board of directors of Sacramento Tree Foundation for about 10 years. I am a lifelong resident of city of Sacramento. In fact, I attended McClatchy High School, as did my kids. And I'm basically your neighbors. I live across the tracks in Curtis Park. So good to see you all tonight. A little bit about who Sacramento Tree Foundation are. It was founded in 1982 when then Mayor Phil Eisenberg and then Board of Supervisor member Isla Collins said it's time for us to have a nonprofit who's dedicated to trees. With that proclamation in 1982, very modest beginnings with a part-time executive director as staff when they could cobble them together, and they started off on this mission. In 1990, they hired this young gentleman by the name of Ray Trethaway. I don't know if you've heard the name. I think you probably had. He eventually was on the city council for a while, and he continued to be the executive director until December of 2020. That's an amazing thing, and when we think of Sacramento Tree Foundation, I think of Ray. But he finally retired. He announced 3 years ago he was going to retire, and he just couldn't pull the plug. Finally did it, and so we're moving on to a new chapter in our history. But what really got us going also in 1990 when Ray started was the Sacramento Municipal Utility District said, we want to partner with you to plant trees. They recognize the value of trees in energy conservation. They were in the business of delivering energy. They saw a partnership, and they wanted to be sure that at least 500,000 trees were planted for energy efficiency. That was a pretty ambitious goal back in 1990. They are continuing to fund one of our major programs, and I asked today our staff, how many trees have we actually planted? It's something over 2 million since 1982 when we started. So today, we're an organization with 32 paid staff, 24 volunteers on the board of directors, including myself. We have a technical advisory committee of 16 people who are experts in the field. And we have a new executive director, Jessica Sanders, who moved to Sacramento from Washington, D.C. to take this job during the pandemic. So kudos to her, and she's doing a great job. Our mission is really very, very simple. I'm going to read it to you here. It's growing, thriving communities through stewardship of our urban forest. I find it interesting that the Sacramento Tree Foundation has a mission that does not include the word tree in it. And that's not really an accident. What we're really concerned about is growing, thriving communities. We happen to see trees as a vehicle for getting there. So why trees? A lot of benefits. I'm sure you living in Land Park know about these, but I'm going to tell you about them anyway. One of them is air quality. Trees are wonderful filters for particulates. When those little particulates are blowing through the air and they hit the leaves on trees, they stop, they'll stick to the leaves, eventually they fall to the ground and they get out of the air. They're also have a role in improving other kinds of air pollution as well. They affect microclimate and temperature in communities. In fact, neighborhoods with lots of trees can be as much as 20 degrees cooler than on a hot day than those without. They lower energy costs. A properly placed shade tree can save up to 40% on your cooling bill. They also contribute to higher property values, lower crime rates, greater social and neighborhood cohesion, and walkability and higher rates of activity. And that last one's really, really important. They all are. But what really struck me when I got into this topic was the relationship between trees and communities and health. Studies have shown, and there's one done here in Sacramento, I've read it, that trees can relate to lower rates of obesity, lower rates of type 2 diabetes, lower rates of hypertension, cardiovascular disease, lower rates of asthma, respiratory disease, improved mental, emotional, and behavioral health, and to a lesser degree, but measurable, reduced ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. So the more we learn about trees and the effect on health, the more we find that they benefit. Also, and I found this fascinating, a study was done to see how trees affect kids in school. And the study took a couple of groups of kids, similar, had one in a classroom that either had no windows or had windows that faced onto a parking lot or something devoid of vegetation. And they had another group of kids who were in a classroom where they had windows and they were looking out on trees. And they actually were able to show that the kids who were in the environment that had the trees performed better. So pretty amazing. Last fact about trees, and I had to read this one twice, but this is what I found. Stormwater retention and filtration are a big deal with trees because of the root systems. A mature oak can harvest up to 50,000 gallons of water during a storm. That's just phenomenal. So what do? The Tree Foundation today has 8 program areas. We started with that one with SMUD, and now we've got 8. The first one I've already mentioned is what we call a Sacramento Shade. And through Sacramento Shade, we offer free trees to anybody who's within the SMUD district and qualifies because of location of trees. If you're interested in getting a tree on your property, all you have to do is contact the Sacramento Tree Foundation. You can do it online. And we will offer free consultation. One of our staff will come out and look at your property, decide where would be an appropriate location for a tree, what kind of a tree would be appropriate to put there. And we will then deliver the tree for free. And we'll even give you instructions on planting and care. Occasionally, we'll even get a board member to go out and plant trees, and I've done that myself. It's a lot of fun. But that's really kind of the foundation of what we do. In addition, we have a program called Neighborwoods, which is one of my favorites. And this focuses on trees, not just on private property individuals, but more at the community level, trees for neighborhoods. We provide expertise, training tools, and advice so that we can empower our community to plant, protect, and learn about trees. These are often done as community planting events, typically on a weekend, typically on a Saturday. But more than that, we have staff who are focused on these communities. They work with the community to build capacity in those communities. So we'll do a lot of different kinds of tree projects. It might be a community that has older trees that are dying off and need to be replaced. It might be an underserved community that simply doesn't have trees or doesn't know that they have the capability of getting trees. It might be a newer community that just simply wants to have more trees involved in their neighborhoods. So these are all grant funded and they're geographic specific. I'll just name them really quickly. We have programs in South Sacramento, South Natomas, Rancho Cordova, Rosemont, Hollywood Park, my favorite, River Park, Arden Park, Del Paso Heights, Arden Arcade, and North Highlands. I want to share with you now, we also do an annual Neighborwoods Leadership Summit. The one this year happens to be July 17th, coming up. It'll be from 9 o'clock until 12:30. It'll be via Zoom. I highly recommend you go online, sign up to participate in it. It's a lot of fun. More fun when we can meet in person, but I think you'll find it very informative. So next program, reforestation. We have had a relationship with the County of Sacramento for some time. When development occurs that affects trees, developers are required to either replace those trees, and there's a formula for how you do that, or they can pay into a fund to mitigate for those trees. If they pay into the fund, that fund is managed by the Sacramento Tree Foundation. We use that money for a variety of projects, including biological monitoring and mapping, land enhancement management, and native plant propagation. But the idea here is that money that comes from mitigation goes right back into making sure that we're replanting our forests. Not all of our activities relate to the planting of trees. It's inevitable that eventually a tree is going to get mature and it's going to die. And it might happen because it simply got old. It might happen because it got blown down in a storm. There are even occasions where mature trees come down because of projects. There's a very large project going on in the River District of Sacramento where housing is being built that required us to take down a bunch of trees. And this is being done by a public project. When that happens, the Tree Foundation can work with the property owner to get those carcasses, trunks collected, and we take them to a yard that we have in the old Sacramento Army Depot. There we have a mill where we'll slab them out, we'll dry them, we'll store them. They're available then for sale for anybody who would like to have this wood to use for whatever project they want. The idea here really isn't so much that we've got a source of quality wood so much as you've got wood that's got some legacy to it. And it's not unusual for somebody to donate a tree to us and then come back and buy slabs of it so they can make furniture. So it's a really cool project. You can go out to the Sacramento Army Depot location. Address is on our website. Take a look at what we have. If you're interested in purchasing some wood, you can. If you just want to see what we're doing, it's fun. We even have a furniture builder in the Midwest somewhere who purchases wood from us, makes furniture, and then sells it as repurposed wood. So a fun project. Save the Elms is a project we have that completely involves volunteers. As you know, our elm forest has been diminishing over time. We're down to about 1,900 remaining elms. And we have a cadre of volunteers who simply have been trained to know what to look for. And if they see an elm that looks like it's suffering from Dutch elm disease, they notify the Tree Foundation. We take steps to deal with it. Unfortunately, those steps usually mean removing the tree, but far better to lose a tree than have it spread to other trees as well. Another really fun program that we have is our acorn harvest. This happens every year. We collect thousands of acorns, and we have a training program. If anybody would like to be involved, you can take the webinars online. Once those acorns get collected, several things can happen. They might go right directly to reforestation sites. They might get grown in-house into seedlings, or they might get packed into kits that are made available for free to classrooms for on-site curriculum. And this is a really fun program too. My kids went to Leonardo da Vinci school here in the neighborhood, and they were involved in this seed to seedling program where they took the kits, they had the kids grow acorns. So over the course of the school term, they got to see the seedlings grow and they got to see them turn into trees. But while that's happening, they're going through classroom curriculum that talk about the growth of trees and the benefit of trees. And then in the end, they do a planting. So, and it's been very popular with special needs classes as well as other classes. We do training and tours. Every winter, we do a free pruning clinic, and it's going out in the field and getting hands-on experience, a lot of fun. There's also self-guided tours. You can download the self-guided tour from our website and take it at your own leisure. The final program I want to talk about, it's a brand new one. We haven't really got it totally rolled out yet, but we call it Green Neighborhood Certification. And the idea here, first of all, it's the first urban forest certification program for new residential developments in the nation. And we're finding that a lot of other organizations have been contacting us they want to model what we've already done. But it's patterned after the LEED program for energy efficient buildings. Everybody familiar with the LEED program? Okay, I won't go into a lot of detail. But the idea behind LEED is it's voluntary. If you meet LEED certification, you get to put a stamp on your building that says we're LEED certified, and there's value added to the building because of doing that. Same thing with neighborhoods. The idea here is if a developer wants to participate in this program, they let us know. We work with them from the very beginning and incorporate trees into the infrastructure of the project rather than it be sort of an afterthought. We also work with whatever jurisdiction they're in so that we minimize surprises as this project is being developed. Once the tree plan is built into the plan, obviously we then look to see that they get planted. And then we monitor the health of those trees really over the life of the trees. So the developer benefits because they build a project that's going to be worth more when they sell the lots. The home builder benefits because they can add to the value of the home because of the quality neighborhood they're in. The homeowner eventually benefits because they're going to see greater value in the homes on resale. They're also going to be living in neighborhoods that are quality neighborhoods with trees. So everybody wins. And I'm going to disclose something here. In a prior life, I was a land use planner for Sacramento County. I was planning director, as a matter of fact. And so I was involved in developing regulation. And I dealt with builders in the Building Industry Association. And we often agreed, but not always. But I was concerned that when they saw my name associated with this program, that they'd see it as a backdoor to regulation. And so we went and met with them. And I was very pleasantly surprised to find out that they really like this program. They embrace it. In fact, the folks I talked to said, we're already doing this stuff. And for those of us who are doing it and want to do it right, this is actually making it easier for us. And we get credit for it. Everybody wins. So anyway, I'm talking about that project because it's one of my favorites, but very exciting to me. All right, been talking about what we do. Let's talk about what you can do. First of all, please write this down, www.sactree.com. That's SAC, S-A-C, tree, and that's our website. It's going to be your portal to all things Sacramento Tree Foundation. When you get in there, there's a place to sign up for our newsletter. Please do that. The newsletter can be delivered electronically. You'll find out all the activities that we have going on, and in a normal time, this last year has not been normal, but in a normal time, there's something going on every weekend, if not even more often. So if you want to get involved in doing a community tree planting, you can do that. If you want to get involved in doing some mitigation, going out and helping build new forests on levees, you can do that as well. It's a lot of fun. The final thing you can do, not final, but you can join the Sacramento Tree Foundation. And you do that by making a donation. The donation doesn't have to be big. I think we'll accept donations as small as $25 annual donation. And I'm going to ask you also sign up to attend the Tree Hero Award ceremony. It happens once a year. We just had it this year. Typically, it's done outside under an oak grove. We have music. We have food. We have lots and lots of activities going on, a lot of fun, and it's our major fundraising event for the year. And the final thing I'm going to ask of you is volunteer. It's a lot of fun. And as a board member, I found sitting in meetings and being a board member is fine, but I really enjoy getting out, getting my fingers dirty, get my hands dirty, getting in the dirt. So I think you will too. That's what I have to say tonight. I've tried to keep it brief. Any questions of me?
Yes, I have a question. So you presented an awesome presentation of the Tree Foundation. Can you share that with Katie Valenzuela, that we are not the only place in the world that has trees, that everybody could get a free tree? She presented the thing in the Sacramento Bee that said that neighborhoods that were not in Land Park could not get trees. It was horrible.
Well, and we're fortunate. We have Kai Herman, who is our Parks Commissioner representative on the as well. So maybe Kai, you can jump in on that as well and talk about kind of the initiatives there. And by the way, I like the T-shirt. Way to support Land Park.
Thanks. I just came from my son's end of the year party, so I'm still have his our uniform on. I managed his team this year, but I also just had to let him in the door because someone dropped him off, so I didn't hear what he just said.
I think and that's really for you and Robert, but I think why don't you go ahead, and I don't want to paraphrase what you said, Craig, related to trees and throughout the city versus just in Land Park.
So Katie Valenzuela made a comment with the Sacramento Bee that Land Park has got this great tree canopy, and everybody else that doesn't live in Land Park doesn't have an opportunity to have the trees, where actually the Tree Foundation lets you have a free tree. I mean, that's what I was trying to say about Robert and this whole thing.
Oh yeah.
If I may, maybe while Kai's collecting his thoughts on that, because I've had a little more time to think about it. I've seen the studies, and the studies are very conclusive that there's a correlation between wealthy communities and tree canopy. And you can draw lots of conclusions from that. And I guess one of them is, wealthy communities are being greedy, but I don't see it that way.
No.
What I see happening really, and this is why I think our Neighborhoods program is so important, is that the underserved neighborhoods don't necessarily know what resources they have available to them. And we're really trying to get out there and make sure that they do know about it. Surprisingly, I will tell you, we occasionally find resistance to planting trees for a variety of reasons. We found, for example, if there's a neighborhood that's largely a rental neighborhood, the landlords don't always see the value in the tree. They see the maintenance cost. I've even heard of communities that view trees as scary, that bad things happen under trees. So what we really try to do is get in and talk with those communities. We try to piggyback on other good things that those communities are doing. We try to dispel those rumors, and we try to help them get the trees planted. Frankly, when I was preparing this presentation for you tonight, I thought, what am I going to tell Land Park about trees? You have trees. You have lots of trees. So my message really is, what can we do about it for the community? And it's not beating up Land Park for having a lot of beautiful trees.
Thank you.
Rick Stevenson here. One thing about that, the Land Park Volunteer Corps, who has worked with the Tree Foundation, they've given us trees over the years to plant in Land Park. We're going to be planting about 80 of them this year within the park itself. And we did get a Tree Hero Award a couple of years ago for saving a big oak the city was going to let die, because weirdly enough, the city has a budget to remove trees, but they didn't have any budget to save them. So I had to go out and convince an oak specialist firm to give 2 years of treatments to a tree that would take almost 300 years to replace, but the city was going to let it die and then pay $9,000 to have it removed, but they couldn't come up with $20 to help save it. So, Mr. Herman, that's something that should be put into the city budget of how to save these things and not just let them die.
Sure, I totally agree with that. I was just going to speak to the non-existence of trees in some of the underserved communities. So like I mentioned, I am heavily involved with Little League, and I was the Land Park Pacific president of the Little League for the past 3 years, but not this year. So I've gone to a lot of different fields in different areas. And so you have areas like Parkway, which originally had trees, but they have died and they have just been neglected. And it's so much hotter when you go to those neighborhoods that don't have trees. And I think it was pointed out earlier that they don't understand how useful and special and important that trees are. And that's all I was going to add.
I had I talked to, I don't know who this should go to, probably Robert more than Kai, but I've talked to several developers that they say they don't like to put in the big trees because they're messy and people don't like them. I know that's a piece of education, but what capacity do we have to require some percentage of large trees in new developments? Because the benefits of the tree is not proportional to the size, is what I understand. So if you only have mid-sized trees, it's not going to provide the same benefit, even if you have the same number of trees or even double the number of trees, because the benefit's so different. So that's.
I can answer, and Kai, unless you want to jump on that. Okay. You know, my experience has been really kind of the opposite. We don't have a problem with developers planting too few trees. We have a problem with them planting too many. And the reason for that I found is a brand new neighborhood looks so much more attractive if there's a bunch of trees in it. But those trees get planted too close together. When they mature, they're not healthy. And then we end up having to remove sometimes all the trees. So that's why I said the right tree in the right place is so important. There's some great examples of bad planting in the Natomas community where they were just they just plastered every open space with trees, and then the trees were not healthy.
Yeah.
So, and I also have to say, now the idea of old big trees, small trees, I don't know. I haven't heard that argument. But what I have heard, and I spent 35 years trying to understand the psyche behind developers so I could work with them. And what I found is some of the things that they really, really don't like are surprises and delays. And when the trees are the last thing to get planned, surprise, surprise, you go to plant the tree and it's too close to the sidewalk, or you put it on top of a sewer main or something else. And that compromises the location of the tree. It compromises the aesthetic of the project. Inevitably, it's going to cause surprises and delays. So the developers I've talked to love the idea that we consider trees to be part of the infrastructure, and we plan for them along with all the other utilities that go underground.
I would encourage you to come to the parks meetings when we discuss the parks and we go over their plans, because, you know, a person of your history and background would actually be really a great voice, because I'm always trying to advocate for more open space when you have, you know, thousands of acres that developers get, and then they have like these centralized little spaces that they call parks that have to serve all these different purposes for thousands of people that they're for the communities they're building. So I would just add that part.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. Kai, I don't know if there's anything else you want to say. Just how's it going? You joined mid-pandemic as a parks commissioner, and just maybe let us know how things are going on your end.
So I have joined just at the beginning of this year. I watched a few old episodes of the board at work before I joined. I would say that I'm really aggressive about wanting change and about wanting to move things forward. You know, one of the things that I said I would like to do is to make a groundswell of what we want that zoo space to be when it's gone, because it's going to go somewhere, and we should have a plan as a community what we're going to put there and what we want it to be. And, you know, it should be accessible, not like the amphitheater where people can't, you know, if they're of a certain age, they can't get to it. You know, there should be some accommodations for it to be very walking friendly and all types of able friendly. So that's one of my focuses right now. My other is just to attend meetings. I missed my last meeting because of work. And if it wasn't work, it would have been a playoff game for baseball. So I've been a little distracted. But now, unfortunately, our season's over, and we just had our party today. Land Park Pacific is going to be hosting some all-star games tournaments. We're going to do it at the district as well as the section level at Dooley Field. But just in general, I really, 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 really want the parks to move into the digital age. I don't want to have to go to the park office and look up a book and like see this little comical GA space and say, that's where I want to be. I want them to get Google Maps and I'll have all of this online so that you can, get two contiguous spaces and say, hey, I need all this space for my daughter's 6th birthday, whatever. It's just so archaic right now. And I have spoken with them and they are working on actually redoing the maps so they don't look like comic books. And I have engaged with staff and I've clashed with them, which I find fun because when you clash, things happen, whether I learn something new or, I help push them in the right direction. So, I've responded to a lot of arts emails, which I thoroughly enjoy, arts emails and him keeping me abreast of things like the bike issue, the rental bike dumping in the parks, which upsets me just as much as him. And it's something that I'm pushing up because it's a little above what I do. It's more of how their contracts are and the things that the city council would have to hold them to, the city government. And so, Art sends out all those great emails and he makes sure everyone gets in on them. And I thoroughly love that. And so far it's been great. I loved it. And I'm really excited about making sure Land Park is great. I love go golfing there. I take my kids there. I played at Doc Oliver just before this meeting. The parks are super important to me. I have a 5, 9, and 12-year-old kid or kids, and they're gonna inherit the parks, and they're gonna be here. And so I also encourage other kids to get on the youth park committee, and like there's also like a youth government, and it's that's what parks are going to be for. They're what we do now is going to be for the kids that are growing up now. They're going to have their kids and they're going to be enjoying the park. And so I get excited about talking about the parks and the hope that it could change and that things will be positive for the community, for the residents, and for the people who want to come and enjoy the park as a park. So I'm learning a little bit more about the community enrichment part of things. So I got a big learning curve there. But I was born here in Sacramento at Kaiser Morse. I moved away because my parents got divorced, so I went to high school in Palo Alto. But my older brother went to McClatchy, and we moved back. And when we knew we were gonna when I got married and started gonna have to start a family, because we weren't gonna do that in San Francisco. And I just couldn't be happier about the community, about everything going on and being a part of the parks.
Well, appreciate it, Kai, and thanks for joining us and introducing you to everyone. I guess you've been introduced to Art, so I think that's a good segue into Art, as our park safety champion. Maybe give us a quick update.
Turn it off.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Art. Okay, go
I'm
ahead.
there. Okay, Kai, thank you for the sharing and caring. I appreciate that. And just basically, I can only suggest and ask, and it's already, Danielle, I think had also mentioned it. If you see issues in the park, as an example, take a picture, send it to somebody who's responsible with a CC to Kai. Because Kai he's the parks guy. But we need to get a hold of other people too and find out, as an example, like I'm trying to find out what's happening with parking enforcement. So that's just something that is continuous, will always be, has been in the past, will be in the future. People dummy down as far as look at a sign, says no parking or bike lane, and they figure they can park there because it's too far to walk to another place. And the term that we used at Folsom Prison was, you've got nothing coming. So that's what I think about when I see that. You've got nothing coming as far as parking there. That's my 2 cents. I haven't heard anything more, although Danielle did pretty good job as far as rolling out the use of that portion of the park where it's the restroom and who's going to use it and what's going to happen as far as different programs. So that remains to be seen. I have yet to receive a response from the parks director that I had inquired about using that as a slow street. So, you know, I don't know, maybe their computer's broken or something. Rick has been great as far as in the mornings going and walking his dog and also being part of construction, reconstruction on certain items that are in the park. And I can only applaud him for his continuing effort as far as being in the park. And of course, as noted on the most recent posting in our newsletter that Chris had done, you know, we have the Land Park Volunteer Corps starting up pretty soon in July, hopefully, you know, knock on Formica. And then hopefully we'll be able to have Robert Sherry and his crew as far as provide some trees, is what Rick had mentioned, that we're going to be planting some trees in that the bigger picture, the bigger scheme. So Robert, anytime you find yourself lonely and not having anything to do on a day that we're having a volunteer corps meeting, please show up because we'll gladly serve you breakfast and lunch.
I'd love to.
Yeah, that'd be great. I like that interaction. That's all I have to say at this point, Scott, in regards to, you know, what's happening in the parks. And I see John Shoddy has something I believe he's going to mention.
Well, Jerry Campa couldn't be here because he has some situations at his church. This is his normal church time on a committee over there. But he said to mention to you, I think there was some stuff you might have already received on the website that Jerry sent around. They're doing a lot of public safety work on public safety concerns and needs within the park, including injury crash patterns and high rates of four-way intersections and things like that, which Art could probably talk to you about too. And they do a lot of stuff on. He said, he asked me, I don't know if he thought I knew about this, but he said that there was some concern about the ideas about putting speed bumps installed on 13th Avenue that runs into Southland Park. That's really a heavily trafficked area down there, and I don't know if they're going to do that. I can't say I particularly favor that, but you know, whatever they want to do. And they're putting together, and Art probably could talk about that, about 4 different demonstrations on pilot projects, which involve the Traffic Safety Committee. And these demonstrations are showing about the projects which could be instantly done. They're very temporary and very affordable. I think it's very interesting that those are coming out, and I think you should follow that. And then he talked about they're also looking at transportation infrastructure priorities, about pavement cracks and resurfacing of new bike lanes and things like that. They are going to meet with city man or council member Valenzuela's office, basically listening. They're going to have some listening work sessions with representatives from Public Works and the Sacramento PD and the community. And so I hope those go well. I guess, Art, are you going to be involved in that and all that?
I should be involved in it. And I can tell you right now that it's a very slow process in dealing with Public Works. And I will get ulcers if I let Public Works subject matter. So I'm just going to
talk to Rick Stevenson about that.
Oh my gosh. I don't get it. I really don't get it. You know, Land Park Drive, Thunderdome from 13th all the way to Vallejo with the crashes everywhere. And Jerry shows us the stats that the city uses, Public Works, and they're 5 years behind as far as what Jerry's looking at, as far as the validity to do something. It's just amazing. It could almost be a sitcom, actually. But
I think he's got some pretty good ideas, and we open it. They can get a dialogue going, and they can get some of this going. And there should be money available to do some of these things they're talking about, I believe. So, and a lot of this is going to help the park and what we want to do in the parks and stuff like that. So,
Well, and again, the people that I'm looking at on the screen, if you see people parking in the park, please recommend or ask for no parking signs, additional, for maybe some red striping, and for the stenciling that says bike lane, and maybe
Yeah.
even in more than one language. I'll just say it that way nicely. But it just seems like we need to be more vocal. And I am of the mentality that if Public Works, the city of Sacramento, can't do it, then guess what happens? We go up the chain of command, and we go up the chain of command. Because I've already asked the person that is working at the city manager's office, and Jerry and I have talked about it. Who do we talk to as far as an appeal process? And he said there is none. So it is a dead end process if you want to try to improve something, and the people are have bigger and better concerns, other than safety. And that's where we're at. And I'll stop there. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Art, for all you do, and also help being active at kind of identifying the situation. So I think we've seen an improvement, but there's a lot of work to be done.
Yes.
So.
Great.
Can I say one thing to Kai?
Yes, sir.
That's great. You're a land park person. And Doc Oliver was a coach when I played baseball at Diamond One. So just give you a little history that some of us have been around here for a while.
Yeah, my neighbor gave me a thumb drive of some of the opening days at Dooley when they christened the field Dooley Field, and it still had the trestle bridge so that you could see through to the other side of the houses and stuff. And so, yeah,
I used to climb on that bridge, and we would watch the train go over us. Dooley and my family were really good friends. I've known him, well, for all my life until he passed away. So, yeah. So good on you and your kids, and great to be a part of Land Park.
thanks.
Yeah. And Rick Stevenson here, if I can point out that I was one of the most mediocre players ever for a few years at Pacific Little League.
Oh, Rick, stop
And
it.
the trestle is still there. They just filled it in with a berm. You
They
could
filled it
actually
in with
figure it
dirt.
out. It's
Right.
still there. It's never been removed. I do have a couple of things I'd like to get out in the last couple of minutes. One is was pointed out earlier, July 10 will be the first of this year Land Park Volunteer Corps Work Day. As far as the tree plantings, we will be doing those at the October and November park work days, because of course this is not the time of year to plant trees in Sacramento. There is one of the many dangers, and I'm sorry that Jerry wasn't available tonight, in the 2040 general plan revamp, is that there's to change Land Park Drive within the park itself. And the Parks Department was never consulted on it by General Services or Public Works, whatever they are these days. And I have tried to put in call after call to the traffic department to find out what the rationale is and why they never talked to the Parks Department, and I've never received an answer. I'm going to put in a Public Record Act request pretty soon if I don't hear from them. It could be that just somebody's on vacation, the head of the department. But the thing is, I found that they also, on the Del Rio Trail, they want to turn it all over to the Parks Department to run and manage and all that. And yet all the planning for that for years, they've never talked to the Parks Department. And what I'm afraid is the Parks Department is going to have their budget whaled for what's going to be a massive albatross and money suck. And I'm very concerned that the park impact fees, the potential, and I will write something up on this for a future meeting, because again, we've only got a couple of minutes left. But the Del Rio Trail could very easily eat up all the park impact fees that should be going to William Land Park. And these would be the first ones we've ever been eligible for, but it's from all the new construction of the residential on Land Park Drive, excuse me, on Broadway, the Broadway corridor, from basically 11th or Riverside, you know, all the way down to 19th and beyond. That should be going to William Land Park. And if that gets diverted, we've got to be really vigilant to make sure that's not diverted to the Del Rio Trail. There's just a lot of things that we need to watch for. I know at the last meeting, large event park fee increases were discussed. I know Craig Powell's supposed to be getting in on that because he negotiated the last one, but we do have events, for some that are not aware, that'll bring in $500,000-$700,000 a year in the park, and they pay minimal fees for the use, but they do a lot of damage to it. And anyway, again, I'll write some things up for the next meeting, and they could be circulated even between meetings because we were lucky enough to have a really nice presentation from the Tree Foundation this time. And maybe Mr. Sherry can come and help us plant when we do it in the November and October park work days. Love to have him there. And
Well, yeah,
others.
as I said, if it's something the Tree Foundation is doing, I'd love to participate.
Yeah. So anyway, I'll clam up for the moment and write some of these things down that can be circulated between meetings.
Yeah, let me say that the volunteer corps, by the way, was set up by the Land Park Association and thrived in its early days in its work and initiated that. And so you people that are members of the association and of the board, think about what Rick said when they had that first meeting coming up. I think you said in July. That would be wonderful if you'd come out that day and help out.
Yeah, excellent. I know I have a shovel reserved for me. So.
You're a good man.
So, Rick, appreciate everything. Anything else?
Well, we now Scott and John Puente have told me that they would be willing to be team leaders for that, because we had 4 of them move out of the area, 4 of our regulars. 2 of them even moved to Central America. So we need to get some more team leaders that can, you know, we need about a dozen each time for each park workday.
Okay. And then Rick, we should probably, I know we briefly talked about, but Beverly's on and, you know, some other members of the community will do an outreach to get more leaders to help out with your initiative. So I think we can use a lot of the Land Park network, I'll call it.
And Curtis Park people, Beverly. We can get Curtis Park people too. That'd be good.
I think Kyle has something to say.
I do. I wanted to mention that I don't know where your volunteer corps workday will be, but there's going to be a lot of excess parking used at the end of the park there because of the All-Stars the weekend of July 10th. The tournament runs from the 7th through the 11th for the 8, 9, 10-year-olds All-Stars for the district. And then on the 15th through the 21st, I believe, we're hosting also the sections for the 8, 9, 10-year-old All-Stars. I just wanted you to keep that in mind.
Well, if you look at that cartoony map of where the parks, the various picnic areas are in Land Park, the volunteer corps meets at picnic areas 13 and 14. And we'll be meeting there at 8 a.m. on the 10th.
Okay, sounds great.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Rick. That kind of, I think, concludes the topics. I don't know if anyone else has anything else that we didn't address or wants to bring up, but really appreciate everyone's input.
Another good meeting, Scott.
Thanks, Robert.
Yeah, thanks again. Really appreciate it.
Thanks,
everyone
everybody.
enjoy their evening, and we'll look forward to seeing you soon.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay, thank you. Bye.